The things I value most are my faith and my family.
I value fellowship and I value my community.
Strong morals, honesty, compassion.
I value thoughtful discourse, honesty, and peace.
The last couple of years have certainly taken a toll. I mean, so much of what I love, the things I cherish most, hit this enormous wall of adversity. Our way of life, how we interact, everything was dramatically altered. There are people who profit from us being divided, and I believe they saw the voids we'd been left with as an opportunity. And what once was a really strong bias moved more towards the extreme. And then in some ways, even the extreme was transformed. And people stopped knowing what to believe.
I think the central issue facing the Republic right now is truth and falsity.
We live in two different information universes. You can have the most egregious kind of disinformation that is disseminated out there, and there's really no forum to refute it. There's really no place, no fact check is going to make a difference.
You don't need to censor in order to suppress truth. You can just flood the zone with false information, conspiracy theories, half-truths, exaggerations, distortion, and lies. And pretty soon people don't know what to believe or who to believe anymore. They become cynical.
This window of extremism, recklessness, and disinformation has moved from the fringes, it's always been there, now to the mainstream.
When the danger leaves the screen, leaves the television, and it lands on your front doorstep, and it enters your home, into your family, into your community, I think we're understanding now how truly destructive misinformation can be.
I work for a church in an area that has suffered very, very severely from not just political misinformation, but even misinformation regarding COVID. We've had dozens of families leave our church over the past 2 years.
I have personal family friends that were involved with January 6th and who are advocating violence. This is personal to me. And I watched the disinformation that they were spewing that led them to promote violence.
Misinformation's definitely changed our personal family dynamics. There's a sense of, maybe skating on thin ice on what you're allowed to talk about.
I think we need to have a conversation. Where are we letting the world influence us?
The fact that we are discussing these terms like disinformation and misinformation, that was not in our vocabulary 5-10 years ago.
And in that same time frame, I've experienced once great relationships deteriorate because of it.
I had seen how the circulation of misinformation was accelerating and the tragic consequences of it. But I guess in a way, when I turned off the news, I'd always been able to somewhat separate myself from it. Even apart from the pandemic, my wife and I had gone through a really challenging stretch, enduring 2 devastating miscarriages. Then last year, we received the most amazing blessing and found out we were pregnant with twins. We moved across the country to be closer to family and a support network because the one thing we knew is that we were going to need help. Our new home was in the South and deep red, even for the South. On top of what we had already endured, we were going to do everything we possibly could to keep our babies safe from the pandemic, everything our doctors recommended. My mother was planning on coming and helping for the first month after they were born. And I remember the moment it dawned on me, wow, I need to ask if she's been vaccinated. And I really don't know what she's going to say. The response was no. And so she sent me articles, posts, just a flood of material trying to explain why she wouldn't. And nothing I said to try to counter it led to any progress. And one by one, our support network that we had moved for, it just started to fall apart. And that realization was like, okay, this misinformation problem has gotten so bad, it's circulated so far and wide that now it's reaching people like her. While knowing that those who were creating it in the first place, they did not have her best interest in mind. And that the material and the content was intentionally created to mislead. And it took a real emotional toll, not just on me, but on her. The thought of her possibly not being here for when they arrived was painful. Almost overnight, it felt that, I couldn't change the channel. I couldn't turn this off, it was here. So I reached out to a couple of my oldest friends, and the moment I began explaining my situation, I was met with, I know, I'm dealing with this too.
The moment I realized that family and I were really diverging would have been the start of the pandemic. They viewed everything as it was fine, it's not a big deal. Everyone's overreacting. I feel like that the pandemic's just been there as this divisive elephant in the room this entire time. And it gave people a topic even through the election, I feel like, to find a way to point the finger at everyone else that didn't agree with you. It feels like the nature of misinformation, of people seeing what they want to find, it strains personal relationships for sure. You find the family members, you find the friends that had been lifelong great relationships, and now maybe you're starting to kind of avoid that person. Maybe you're having surface level conversations. We have 2 kids, one who is eligible to be vaccinated, and she is completely. And we have a son who is not eligible. So when you talk about COVID misinformation within my personal relationships, family, friends, that is an element. It has to be part of that discussion. And poking holes in logic does not get your message heard with people who believe just as firmly in the opposite of what you're trying to tell them.
Colt and I have been buddies for years, and we talk all the time, but this never came up. I think that we thought we were all alone in this.
I've got a couple people in my family and friend network that really started, in my opinion, to take a really dark turn. They're getting wrapped into these conspiracy theories, and they're becoming very isolated and alone, and they're choosing that, over being with their family, and it's coming to affect my relationship with them along with their other personal relationships with their friends and family. It's just really hard to understand that someone is willing to potentially give up so much of their life based on some of these beliefs and stories that obviously have no factual basis. I don't think we can necessarily just blame the internet as the problem. The internet isn't creating this. There's people on the other end who are spreading these conspiracy theories. It becomes kind of human nature that, as soon as someone is trying to convince you or persuade you on something, they're going to dig in their heels even harder. How do you not then try to combat that in the moment?
As we were going through this, I started talking to the people involved with the American Values Coalition. And it was the first time I found someone saying, yes, misinformation is an enormous problem. And we know that countering it with a barrage of facts is just not working. So we're here to figure out what will.
The number one thing to do is what the American Values Coalition is in fact doing. Understanding the mechanisms that we can use to slow down this attack and ultimately repel it, and put people throughout society to work on that problem.
You're never going to make progress with someone who feels like you don't respect them.
And what I found is there's a giant difference between a conversation that begins like this: I'm going to tell you something, versus what do you think?
When you care about someone, there's just too much at stake. You have to at least try.
Helping each other embrace a shared, fact-based narrative, that can lead to progress. That can lead to a better and stronger America. The more that we've been able to grow, the 3 of us have found that we've become better suited and better equipped to actually reach the loved ones that we care about so much.
Putting your own biases aside and hear where they're coming from and having that empathy to walk in their shoes.
What works best is to express curiosity and genuine interest, to build a relationship with that person, not to just throw facts at them. But over time, it can get people to think again.
Our families, our friends, even our country. That's our why. And this group has really shown me the how. We have to return to our values: respect, love, kindness, compassion, empathy. Not just saying those words, but actually developing mechanisms to employ them and create resources to help others do the same.
Ever since the first workshop, I have been telling every single pastor that I personally have a connection to, like, the next time they do one of these things, you need to clear your schedule and bend over backwards to be there.
It helped me realize I wasn't crazy, that
Yes.
the things I was seeing were being seen by men and women of integrity, men and women of faith and intelligence, biblical principles, and we're saying this is a problem. People are being misled.
It's been good to have more open conversations and to just see people be more receptive to what other people are saying and not seeing walls go up. And the American Values Coalition has helped me do that.
It doesn't matter if we're red, blue, city, or rural. Nobody is seeking to believe in something that is not true. I've seen enough political flags and bumper stickers to know that the majority of my new neighbors, they don't share the same views that I do. And guess what? They're incredible people. I know that we share a lot of the same values. So we may not agree on everything, but we don't have to. And we certainly don't hate each other. So why do we continuously listen to the voices that are telling us that we should?
C.S. Lewis talked about some lovers look eye to eye, friends look shoulder to shoulder. We're seeing this sort of same reality. We all need that.
I tried everything else, and ultimately I had to return back to my values, love and compassion and respect. And I'm starting to see the shield crack a little bit.
I value my family and my faith more than anything. This Christmas, we were all able to be together, and I was able to experience the joy of seeing my mother holding her grandkids for the first time. Healing our divides seems like a monumental task, but I know that the effort is worth it. I'm hopeful, and I know it can be done. I'm hopeful because I've seen it done.